last time I seen him live. It was cool to be able to finally get all that shit behind us. You know what I'm saying?
They were once blood brothers in NWA, the ones who wrote hip-hop history and carried Compton's voice to the world. But in 1995, when Eazy-E, the godfather of gangsta rap, suddenly died at the age of 30 from AIDS, the world was stunned. Thousands flooded his funeral to bid farewell to a legend. Yet one face everyone expected to see was missing Ice Cube. Fans were shocked. How could Cube miss the funeral of Eazy-E, the brother who had once stood shoulder to shoulder with him? Rumors swirled for years, from money disputes and resentment to tragedies behind the scenes. Was it ruthless coldness or a deep, unspoken pain? Now the real reason has finally come to light, and it isn't what anyone expected. In 1986, from the dusty streets of Compton, California, 5 young names joined forces to set off an unprecedented earthquake in music history: Eazy-E, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, MC Ren, and DJ Yella. That was the birth of NWA. Niggas with Attitudes. The boldest, most rebellious, most unflinching rap group of its time. At the center of the story stood 2 men with opposite temperaments who completed each other perfectly: Eazy-E and Ice Cube. Eazy-E, born Eric Wright, grew up in Compton's poor neighborhoods, where gunfire and drugs were part of everyday life. Starting out as a small-time dealer, Eazy was daring, tough, and razor-sharp. While many only dreamed of escaping the projects, he saw in them a musical goldmine, gritty street stories no one had dared to tell. With the instincts of a true kingpin, Eazy scraped together capital, founded Ruthless Records, and poured everything into producing rap. He wasn't just the boss behind the scenes. Eazy was the face and the soul of NWA. In contrast, Ice Cube, real name O'Shea Jackson, wasn't a street hustler, but a young man with an extraordinary gift for words. At just 17, Cube already wielded a pen with explosive force. His bars were sharp as knives, as raw as the life the black community faced. It was Cube who turned the anger of the streets into poetry with political power. Their combination was like a street kingpin meeting a combat-ready pen. One turned street experience into a brand, the other turned fury into lyrics. And when those two pieces clicked, what they created wasn't just music. It was a cultural declaration. The pinnacle of that partnership was the album Straight Outta Compton, 1988. This wasn't just a rap album, it was a cultural revolution. For the first time, West Coast street hip-hop dared to call out the police by name, to lay bare racial truths, to turn a generation's suffocation into sound. Songs like Straight Outta Compton and F***, the police enraged federal authorities. Radio stations banned them. The FBI sent warning letters. But for young black listeners, they were a roar, a voice for the pent-up fury long buried. In the eye of that storm, Eazy-E and Ice Cube became an inseparable pair. On stage, they were not just teammates, they were brothers. At that moment, no one thought their bond would collapse. Yet right at the height of glory, the first cracks began to form. The rift, when money came between brotherhood. Behind the dazzling spotlight, money began to creep in, driving a wedge between brothers. Ice Cube, the chief lyricist, the pen behind most of the group's explosive hits, was the first to sense something was wrong. He felt that he, along with Dr. Dre, wasn't being paid fairly for the work they had put in. All Cube received was a mere $32,000, while the album was raking in huge profits and taking NWA to the top. The contract drafted by the group's manager, Jerry Heller, was alarmingly vague. It wasn't even clear if Cube was an official member of NWA or just a collaborator. At only 19 years old, Cube didn't have legal experience, but he was sharp enough to realize this was a dangerous trap. He began to suspect that Jerry Heller and Eazy-E, as co-founder of Ruthless Records, were sitting back and cashing in on the backs of him and Dre. While Cube was writing the very verses that shook America, Eazy was pocketing the massive profits from ownership and control of the label. The conflict grew increasingly bitter. To Cube, Eazy was no longer a brother, but a man silently watching him get cheated. To Eazy, Cube was the rebel who dared to question the family and the system he himself was steering. By late 1989, it all exploded. Ice Cube announced he was leaving NWA. Not only that, he also filed a lawsuit against Jerry Heller over the unfair contract, a case eventually settled out of court. It wasn't just a personal decision, it was an earthquake in the hip-hop world. Fans were stunned. How could the group at the peak of its power lose its most powerful pen? In multiple interviews, and even in the documentary NWA, The world's most dangerous group, Cube, made it clear the only reason he left was money and an unfair deal. Cube was blunt. It was simple money. I was not getting paid. He continued, I just wanted to be paid. If they would have gave me what I thought I deserved, I would have stayed. And his frustration was raw. Everybody was getting paid but me. I just couldn't roll with that. Then came the line that shut down all debate. I wasn't going to be anybody's slave. If Cube was the first to pull the trigger, Dr. Dre soon realized he was no better off. In the biography Dr. Dre. The biography 2007, Dre admitted that Heller had played a divide and conquer game. Instead of taking care of the group as a whole, he favored only Eazy-E. That sense of abandonment pushed Dre to quietly plan his escape. And when Dre decided to leave, ruthless Suge Knight entered the picture. Behind the scenes, stories spread that Suge used intimidation and even violence to force Eazy-E to sign papers releasing Dre from his contract. Though the real events differ from how the film Straight Outta Compton 2015 portrayed them, one fact is undeniable. Suge's arrival marked a turning point. From there, Dre and Suga launched Death Row Records, igniting a whole new era in hip-hop. Jerry Heller, however, did not stay silent. In his memoir, Ruthless: A Memoir, he insisted that the profit splits at Ruthless followed industry standards. 25% went to the label, the rest divided between the lyricist Cube and the beat producer Dre. According to Heller, Cube and Dre had been paid fairly, and the accusations of being cheated were nothing but misunderstandings. He also furiously rejected how Straight Outta Compton depicted him, especially the infamous lobster dinner contract scene. He even went so far as to sue Dre, Cube, and Universal for defamation, claiming those portrayals were completely false. Brotherhood had turned into hostility. From then on, WA lashed out at Cube in their tracks, branding him a traitor who abandoned the family. Jerry Heller and Eazy-E repeatedly downplayed Cube's role, insisting his departure didn't hurt NWA. Cube, in turn, stepped into his solo career ready to fire back, and he proved his point. His debut solo album, America's Most Wanted 1990, was a massive success. It confirmed that his talent did not depend on NWA. In fact, he showed he could stand alone and be even more dangerous without them. But Cube's success did nothing to heal the wounds. If anything, it only deepened the divide, turning a rift into open warfare. Public insults, media shots, and most explosively diss tracks transformed Eazy and Cube from brothers into rivals. From that point on, every exchange wasn't just a Cold War, it became an all-out rap war. And in that war, every lyric was a bullet. Rap as bullets. The public war, financial, and personal conflicts quickly escalated into one of the most infamous word battles in rap history. This was how both sides chose to speak to each other, not through phone calls, not through private talks, but through the microphone. In 1990, NWA released the mini-album 100 Miles and Running. It was their first project after Ice Cube's departure and the first time the public heard open shots aimed at him. In the lyrics, Cube was painted as a traitor, a man who abandoned his family to chase fame and money. By the time of Niggas for Life 1991, the attacks became sharper. The verses didn't name him outright, but fans had no trouble recognizing who the target was. For Eazy-E and NWA, it was their way of declaring that the group still stood strong, that they didn't need Cube to keep shining. Of course, Ice Cube did not stay silent. He hit back hard. Once the most powerful pen in NWA, Cube now turned that same pen against his old crew, writing No Vaseline 1991, a diss track that many critics would later call a nuclear bomb in hip-hop. In No Vaseline, Cube didn't mince words. From the opening lines, he called out Jerry Heller as a white Jew manager, manipulating a group of black rappers. You let a Jew break up my crew. Cube's lyrics stripped bare the injustices he had long complained about, being cheated favoritism toward Eazy-E and Heller's divide and conquer tactics. Even more painfully, Cube didn't just target Heller. He fired at his former brothers, accusing them of being blind. What made the track historic wasn't just its venom, but how Cube used rap as a political weapon. He turned personal fury into a voice for countless black artists who also felt trapped in exploitative contracts. No Vaseline wasn't just a diss track, it was a warning shot at the entire music industry. Critics called it one of the most brutal diss tracks of all time. Hip-hop journalist Oliver Wang wrote, "It wasn't just a diss, it was a nuclear strike. Fans were stunned, and the rap world split. Many praised Cube for speaking truth, while others felt he went too far by dragging race and religion into the track. But Eazy-E wasn't about to let Cube fire alone. In 1993, he dropped Real Motherfuckin' G's, a diss aimed squarely at Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, who had just left Ruthless to form Death Row Records. In the track, Eazy insisted that he and NWA were the ones who still held the real spirit of street rap. He mocked Cube and Dre for changing their image, accusing them of abandoning the gangster edge to chase commercial stardom. The music video amplified the blow. Eazy stood confidently among a lineup of young rappers, presenting himself as the kingpin leading the next generation. In it, actors dressed up as Dre and Snoop were ridiculed, turned into clowns for the audience. For many, Real Motherfuckin' G's was more than a song. It was Eazy's declaration that he hadn't lost his throne, even as Cube and Dre moved on. Not to be outdone, Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg fired back with F*** Wit Dre Day * 1993, featured on Dre's legendary album The Chronic 1992. Their verses tore into Eazy-E and Heller, accusing them of cheating and exploiting artists. The video made it even more savage. An actor portrayed Heller as a greedy, bumbling manager, while Sleazy E, a parody of Eazy, was reduced to a caricature. F*** Wit Dre Day * became a major hit, climbing the Billboard Hot 100 and catapulting Dre and Snoop into global rap stardom. But behind the commercial success, the song only deepened the rift, turning personal conflict into an all-out war in hip-hop. These tracks transformed division into a public battle, thrilling fans, while exposing the collapse of a hip-hop family. The bitterest part. Every shot fired came from men who once called each other brothers. They had once sat together in the studio sharing ideas and verses. They had once stood shoulder to shoulder on stage shouting Compton to thousands of fans. They had once dreamed the same dream to bring the voice of Black America to the world. Yet in just a few years, that brotherhood had mutated into one of the fiercest rivalries in rap history. Every verse became a bullet. Every album, a battlefield. No direct talks, no reconciliatory handshakes, only microphones, beats, and razor-sharp rhymes. The war between Ice Cube and Eazy-E wasn't just personal. It was the naked truth of the music industry, where money can tear apart friendships, where contracts outweigh memories, where brothers can become enemies over numbers on a page. And yet that very war left behind a cultural legacy. It proved rap's power lay not just in rhythm, but in its ability to expose the truth, no matter how bitter that truth was. Looking back, No Vaseline, Real Motherfuckin' G's, and F*** Wit Dre Day * are not just diss tracks. They are historical documents of hip-hop's most chaotic era. They tell a brutal truth: when money enters the picture, even bonds forged in blood and sweat can turn into open hostility. NWA left behind a massive legacy, but also a tragedy. And after years of verbal warfare, after lyrics turned brotherhood into enmity, no one thought Ice Cube and Eazy-E would ever sit down together again. But fate had other plans, and it would bring them face to face one last time. The final reconciliation. In 1994 at the Tunnel Club, the legendary New York nightclub, often called the Cathedral of Hip-Hop Destiny, arranged an unexpected meeting. The Tunnel was notorious a place where giants like Jay-Z, Biggie, Nas, and Tupac gathered, but also a place where personal feuds could erupt into violence at any moment. And it was here that Ice Cube crossed paths with his old brother-turned-enemy, Eazy-E. That night, Eazy-E arrived with a new crew under Ruthless Records, a young rap group called Bone Thugs and Harmony. At the time, Bone Thugs were exploding in popularity, on the verge of releasing The Crossroads, 1995, a track that would later become one of the most emotional tributes to Eazy after his death. Eazy stood in the middle of his protégés, a sign that he was still a boss, still commanding influence in the rap game, even as Ruthless faced fierce competition from Death Row Records. Then, out of nowhere, Ice Cube walked in. For the first time in years, the two men, once brothers, later sworn enemies, were face to face. The room grew heavy. All eyes watched, waiting. Would they turn away, or would another confrontation ignite? What happened stunned everyone. Ice Cube and Eazy-E sat down and talked. In a 2023 Club Shay Shay interview, Cube recalled, "The moment I saw him at a club in New York called The Tunnel. He was with Bone Thugs and Harmony. They was just blowing up. We got a chance to talk. We just sat and talked for hours, just about old times. For hours, they set aside the years of hostility. They laughed, joked, raised glasses, reminiscing about the early days in that tiny Compton studio when Straight Outta Compton was still just a wild idea. Cube remembered it was cool to be able to finally just get all that behind us, laugh and joke and have drinks talking about what happened. To get a chance to have that time with him before he passed away, man time does heal all wounds. During that talk, Cube even encouraged Eazy to reconcile with Dr. Dre, who had by then left Ruthless and co-founded Death Row Records with Suge Knight, launching a new West Coast era. Cube said he was beefing with Dre and Death Row, and I was like, yo, work that out. I'm here. Ironically, that night at the Tunnel would be the last time Cube ever saw Eazy-E. Cube later admitted to be able to have that time with him before he passed. That's something I'll always be grateful for. He reaffirmed once more. At the end of the day, I still considered Eazy my friend, not just the boss, not just the leader of NWA, but truly a friend. That moment inside the Tunnel in late 1994 was their final reconciliation, a fleeting light that washed away years of bitterness. For Ice Cube, it became a priceless memory, a reminder to remember Eazy not as an enemy, but as the brother who once stood beside him to make history. No one knew that just months later that brief joy would turn into a final memory, before tragedy struck. 1995. Tragedy. The sudden death of Eazy-E. In early 1995, no one in hip-hop could imagine that Eric Eazy-E Wright, the godfather of gangsta rap, was carrying a devastating secret. He still appeared at events, still ran Ruthless Records, still guided Bone Thugs and Harmony. Outwardly, he was the same bold, untouchable figure, but behind the spotlight, his health was deteriorating rapidly. Hospitalization and the shocking diagnosis. In February 1995, Eazy was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles with severe breathing problems. At first, many thought it was just a routine respiratory issue. But after tests, doctors delivered a bombshell: Eazy-E had advanced stage AIDS. At that time, AIDS was still viewed as a death sentence burdened with stigma and fear. For a rapper like Eazy, an icon of defiance, toughness, and gangster bravado, the diagnosis was not just a personal tragedy. It was a shockwave felt by his family, his friends, and the entire hip-hop world. The final letter, a shocking confession. On March 16, 1995, Eazy-E decided to tell the world the truth. In a long open letter sent to fans and the press, he wrote, "I have something to confess. I have contracted AIDS and I allowed this disease to become a part of me. I don't want this truth to be hidden. I want to warn anyone living recklessly like me, protect yourself. Life is precious, and I learned this lesson too late." The confession brought millions of fans to tears. Eazy, once the fearless symbol of gangsta rap, was now using his final days to deliver a message of caution to the next generation. A sudden departure. Just 10 days later, on March 26, 1995, Eazy-E passed away at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. He was only 30 years old, leaving behind 11 children, an unfinished record label, and a colossal legacy in hip-hop. His death remains one of the most shocking losses of the 1990s. It happened too quickly, too suddenly. Bone Thugs and Harmony, the group Eazy had discovered and mentored, released The Crossroads as a tribute to him. The track became an anthem of farewell, moving the entire rap world to tears. The funeral of a legend. On April 7, 1995, Eazy-E's funeral was held at Rose Hills Memorial Park in Los Angeles, attended by more than 3,000 people. It was both somber and grand, a testament to the immense impact he left behind. Friends, peers, legendary rappers, and thousands of fans gathered. MC Ren and DJ Yella were there to say goodbye. Even Dr. Dre, despite years of animosity, sent his condolences. The atmosphere was filled with grief tears mixing with the echoes of rap in the hearts of loyal fans. And yet among the sea of mourners, one face was painfully absent: Ice Cube. Once Eazy's right hand, once his partner in writing verses that shook the world, his absence immediately became the center of speculation. Fans asked, how could Cube miss Eazy-E's funeral? Rumors swirled. Some claimed Cube still held resentment, others saw it as betrayal. But many believed the reason was deeper, not hatred, but a grief so overwhelming that he simply could not face it. When a brotherhood turns to rivalry only to reconcile just before death, that sudden loss becomes a wound too heavy to bear. Eazy-E's death not only closed a golden chapter of American hip-hop, it left behind a mystery that would linger for decades. The mysterious absence. Why Ice Cube didn't attend the funeral years later. Ice Cube spoke plainly. "I didn't want to see Eazy in that condition. I want to remember him alive and walking." For Cube, the memory of Eazy could not be replaced by the image of a lifeless body in a coffin. He chose instead to remember his friend as he once was vibrant, fearless, defiant, the man who turned street rap into an empire. At the time, many fans took his absence as coldness or lingering hatred. But Cube insisted it was not denial of friendship, it was his way of honoring it. On Reddit, fans have often recalled Cube's repeated stance. Cube has said a couple of times that he doesn't go to funerals. He wants to remember his friends as they were alive, not dead. This shows it wasn't only about Eazy-E. For anyone close to him, Cube held the same philosophy. For him, funerals were not where bonds lived. Friendship lived in memories and laughter, in shared struggles, not in mourning rooms. According to several reports, Cube had even gone to the hospital to visit Eazy. But when he saw how dire his condition was, he couldn't step inside. He told Dr. Dre, "Call me when he wakes up." Dre did call, but only to say that Eazy-E was gone. For Cube, it was a wound that never fully healed. He admitted to feeling guilty for not being there in Eazy's final moments, but that was also why he didn't want the funeral to be his last memory of his friend. Silence as respect. When DJ Yella, the only NWA member who attended, stood to speak, many criticized Cube and Dre for their absence. But over time, people began to understand everyone has their own way of facing loss. Ice Cube's absence did not mean rejection. Quite the opposite. He later reaffirmed, "At the end, I considered him a friend. Not just the leader of NWA, but a friend." Ice Cube's absence at Eazy-E's funeral once fueled endless rumors, doubts, and criticism. But when we piece the memories together from their final meeting in New York to Cube's hospital visit to his blunt public statements, one truth emerges. Cube chose to preserve the best image of his friend. Not everyone chooses to cry in front of a coffin. Sometimes the deepest respect is to hold on to the smile, the fire in the eyes, and the days of life. For Ice Cube, Eazy-E would forever remain the daring, defiant, full-of-life young man, not the still body lying in a casket. And perhaps that's why, instead of letting grief chain him to the past, Ice Cube chose to move forward to write the next chapter of his career and his life. A journey that transformed him from a street rapper into a living legend of hip-hop and Hollywood. Ice Cube, the life of a living legend. Now in his 50s, Ice Cube has traveled a stormy road from the street rapper, the golden pen of NWA, to one of the most influential hip-hop artists of all time. But his journey did not stop with music. After leaving NWA and cementing his name as a solo artist, Cube branched out into film. He wrote scripts, produced, and starred in numerous hits: Friday 1995, the comedy classic; Boys and the Hood 1991, his breakout acting role; the Barbershop series, Ride Along 21 Jump Street, which made him a household name for a new generation of fans. Not only an actor, Cube proved himself a savvy producer. His company Cube Vision backed many successful projects, solidifying his status as a true mogul in entertainment. In 2017, he shocked the sports world by founding the Big Three Basketball League, a 3-on-3 competition featuring former NBA stars. Big Three quickly made waves, showing that Cube wasn't just a rapper or filmmaker, but also a visionary entrepreneur. Thanks to his fusion of artistry, business, and strategy, Ice Cube built an empire worth an estimated $160 million. Forbes celebrity net worth. From a Compton teenager once fighting for a few $1,000s in royalties, Cube has become one of the wealthiest, most powerful rapper-actor entrepreneurs in American entertainment. On stage, he's fierce and raw. Off stage, Cube is a family man. Married to Kimberly Woodruff since 1992, the couple has 4 children. Among them, O'Shea Jackson Jr. stands out, the actor who portrayed his father in the 2015 biopic Straight Outta Compton. Cube has said, "Family is the biggest anchor, the thing that keeps me from getting lost in this glamorous world." Even with his busy film and business ventures, Ice Cube never abandoned music. He continues to perform release albums and insists that the essence of gangsta rap has never disappeared. With more than 10 solo albums, he remains one of the most enduring rap artists in history. Today, Ice Cube is remembered not only as a hip-hop legend, but as an American cultural icon. From music, film, and business to sports, his mark is everywhere. Rolling Stone once named him among the 100 greatest artists of all time. And above all, despite the bitter feud with Eazy-E and NWA, Cube now speaks of them with respect. He admits the past taught him valuable lessons and that their shared legacy was the spark that ignited an entire generation of rap. NWA's legacy lives not only in music, but in the lessons it left behind, that brotherhood can fracture over money, that artistic egos can outweigh loyalty, and that hip-hop doesn't only celebrate victories, it also carries wounds that never fully heal. Today, when people look back, they no longer just ask, why didn't Cube attend the funeral? They also wonder, how could a group once bonded like blood allow division to define its legacy? And perhaps the answer lies in the harshest truth. This is hip-hop's essence, honest, raw, and unafraid to confront pain. So what about you? How do you see the turbulent relationship between Ice Cube and Eazy-E? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join us on the next journey. Thank you for watching.